Let's look at a couple of examples where we're using the product rule to expand this out and give us a simplified expression. Now, just like we had said in our previous video, what we're going to use is FOIL in order to expand this out. So notice I'm going to be multiplying the first terms and then the outside terms, the inside terms, and the last terms. And I should end up with 4 terms again at the end. And the reason, and really the only reason that this question is any more difficult than the last one, is just that there's more opportunities to make mistakes when it comes to directed numbers. So you go a little bit slower and just make sure that you're aware of any time that you're dealing with a negative number. So in this case here, I'm going to get negative 2a times a, which should be negative 2a squared. Negative 2a times negative 5 should be positive 10a. Positive 3 times a is going to be positive 3a, and positive 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. So really, you just need to go a little bit slower to make sure that when you're dealing with a negative times a negative, that you're writing down the positive, and a negative times a positive should be a negative. Notice again, I've got 2 terms here that are like terms, so I'm going to put them together. I've got negative 2a squared plus 13a minus 15. So that will be my final answer, my simplified expression. I can't do anything further with it because not any of these are like terms. Notice I've got a squared, I've got an a, and no a there. So none of these are like terms. I can't go any further or simplify it any further. Let's take a look at this one. I'm going to be using FOIL again in this one. So I'm going to be multiplying my first terms. I'm going to be multiplying my outside terms. Then I'm going to be multiplying my inside terms. And I'm going to be multiplying my last terms. The reason this one is slightly different to this one is that I've moved the number or the term, where the variable is to the outside spot instead of to the inside spot. So all of the multiplying that I'm going to do is the exact same. But when I get my 4 terms, these 2 terms that are in the middle that are next to each other, they're not going to be this time. So negative 4x times positive 1 should be negative 4x. Negative 4x times negative 6x is going to be positive 24x squared. Negative 3 times positive 1 is going to be negative 3. And negative 3 times negative 6x is going to be positive 18x. Now notice, I've still got 4 terms just like I did in this particular question, but I've got a term here and a term here that are like terms, instead of the 2 like terms being next to each other. So as I mentioned in a previous video, when you get an opportunity like this, what you want to do is you want to rearrange it and rewrite the expression so that your like terms are together, so you minimize the chances of you making mistakes with directed numbers. So I'm going to write negative 4x plus 18x plus 24x squared minus 3. Remember, as I mentioned in that previous video, if I move something, if I move a term to another spot, I can do that. I can rearrange this expression, but I always must take the sign that's in front of that term. Here's where you got to be careful. Minus 4x plus 18x. Students want to have that tendency to just think about that operation in between the two and write down 22x. But remember, we're starting at negative 4 and then we're going to add 18, so we should end up with positive 14x plus 24x squared minus 3. Now in normal algebraic convention, we would normally write the term with the highest exponent first. We don't have to, it would mean the same, but we're just going to rewrite this as 24x squared plus 14x minus 3. The reason is because later on in high school, in algebra in high school, you'll end up doing things with equations or expressions in this format as opposed to this format. So it's just good convention to start that early. So that's using the product rule with a couple of different expressions. And things to look out for especially are your directed numbers, and to make sure that when you go to simplify that you first rearrange the expression so that you can simplify it without having difficulty of looking across to see what things you're putting together.